Can you believe it's already been 5 years since the search for A Day with SpongeBob began? It feels like only yesterday, 4chan was blowing up with allegations that Regal Films was some kind of front for laundering money, or that the film itself had been spotted in Hastings discount bins. To this day, I still consider the search for this non-existent film as one of my favorites, not so much because of the hype surrounding it, but because I was an active member of the original search team, and it cemented my foundation in lost media. Recently, Peggy and a few other friends who were also involved in the search collabed on an iceberg containing elements from our time with A Day with SpongeBob. So, I decided to claim my stake in the vast Arctic Sea of these to share and reminisce with you all about one of the most influential lost media searches to date. A Day with SpongeBob Amazon listing. The very top of the iceberg contains the single most influential factor in what kicked the whole thing off, the Amazon listing. This was the original source of the film's existence and was originally posted all the way back in November of 2011. Apparently, the listing was used for promotional reasons to gauge any interest in the film itself. Eventually, the listing made its way to the SB Mania forums a couple years later, where its validity and information were first discussed, until the creation of its Lost Media Wiki article in 2015. Despite fake listings and reviews that make it seem like the film released, the Amazon listing has never been in stock, and the film was never produced. Posting fake reviews of the film became a minor meme during its peak, and can still be seen today. Innovision and Regal Films. Innovision Films and Regal Films were the names of companies heavily associated with A Day with SpongeBob and its alleged production. Before much had been known about the film, it was Innovision that became the searching point for it, having made an appearance on the cover. This pulled up many other films they had a hand in producing, and the crew members who were responsible. Then, once the crew members had been discovered, it was a search of their names that pulled up Regal Films, the current company name that was being used. Innovision is essentially an older iteration of Regal, which in itself brought up dubious theories about why the name had been changed at all. Lorenzo Hawley. Lorenzo Hawley is the president of Regal Films, and one of the biggest names associated with A Day with SpongeBob and its search. He became one of the most sought-after contacts for this reason, and took many months of persistence to get a hold of, after messages and emails were ignored. He often traveled the globe, owned a couple other companies, and was even spotted mining for gold, which made things more difficult. We finally made some progress after moving away from social media and trying to call him directly, as several phone numbers attached to his name were found. If I recall correctly, every single one of them was called, but most ended up being dead ends. They were disconnected, which was probably a result of them being called so often. Hoaxes. Throughout the months-long search for A Day with SpongeBob, a plethora of different hoaxes and fake leads were constantly being perpetuated to either troll or throw off the people who were searching for it. Some of the more common hoaxes include claims of direct connections to the film or its production crew, and making fake DVD cases with the box art. There was also an entire genre of fake videos claimed to have been taken from the film itself, which ranged from poor animation to creepypasta levels of visuals. None of these gained too much validity, but considering how low budget Regal Films was, it became hard to discredit some of the seemingly legit clips. Fake eBay listings were also a thing, but rather short-lived. The only two I ever saw was one taken directly from Rebel Taxi's video on the topic, and another which was for a copy of the film on Game Boy Advance Video. Neither of these were believed too heavily, but people still bid on them. Jonathan Salemi and Jason Boritz. Jonathan Salemi and Jason Boritz were two recurring Regal employees who were associated with many of the films the company produced. Jonathan worked as a writer who was chill when we reached out to him, answering our questions pretty well. Jason, on the other hand, was a producer who was much harder to get a hold of and didn't enjoy the spotlight put on him from the search for A Day with SpongeBob. MVD Films. MVD Films was the main distribution company for many of Regal Films' titles, which gave us reason to believe they'd have a copy of A Day with SpongeBob. In the earlier months of the search, we had acquired a mail order catalog from the company, to which much of Regal's content was listed, albeit no A Day with SpongeBob. Believing that the company had simply not listed the film for potential copyright issues, we gave MVD a call to directly inquire about the film. Unfortunately, they confirmed it was never in stock, and they weren't even sure if it was made, one of the earliest claims of the sort. Regal Films' website has a Trojan. When more and more people started visiting the Regal Films website as the search started gaining popularity, some users reported that their antivirus software would detect a Trojan on the website. This instance led to a theory that Regal Films had intentionally put it there to steer people away from their company as a result of some dubious dealings. There wasn't any word from Regal Films about why this was happening, and it was advised to stay away unless you had up-to-date antivirus software. Eventually, when contact was made with Lorenzo Hawley, he claimed to have no knowledge of such a thing on the site, which led some users to believe the antivirus was flagging it as a false positive. Hastings. Hastings is a defunct retail store that sold entertainment media such as books and movies. The chain closed its last store in 2016, however, still had a few in operation during the A Day with SpongeBob search. One of its employees caught wind of the search and noticed the film itself was listed for sale within the store's inventory system, but was not available for the public to purchase. He reported this fact to the Lost Media Wiki and proceeded to order the film, becoming a vital member of the search. Despite the film never arriving before being taken out of the system entirely, the employee officially joined the wiki and contributed much to the search. Kickstarter. The Kickstarter project was an attempt to revive and officially fund the A Day with SpongeBob film once the search concluded that there was no film in existence. This was to be conducted by Mr. Orange, the supposed creator of the film itself. Through a series of emails at the end of the search in the spring of 2016, Mr. Orange appreciated the enthusiasm and attention the topic had received, and was planning to launch a Kickstarter campaign that fall. He kept in touch with us for a few weeks and announced his plans were moving forward. However, once the fall came, there was no word of the Kickstarter. We reached out again to be informed it had been delayed, until shortly after, Mr. Orange stopped replying to emails altogether. The Kickstarter never surfaced, and the time has long since passed for the same amount of interest to be had in it. That's Just Low. That's Just Low was one of the most notable troll encounters in the whole search for the depth and length of time he led us on for. Originating from the old wiki, he introduced himself as an asset manager for Nickelodeon and claimed Regal Films was going to illegally use assets in A Day with SpongeBob, which prompted its cancellation from the lawyers. Skeptical of his claims, we asked if he could provide any kind of proof, to which he stated he could provide the collection of assets which were allegedly stolen. However, these were only supplied via email request, and he stated that they were not to be posted publicly or he might lose his job. We agreed and received the images, though they didn't depict what A Day with SpongeBob was supposed to be about. We wanted to ask more questions about them, but shortly after, That's Just Low announced someone had leaked the images, putting his job in jeopardy, and disappeared entirely. I felt bad that someone in our group had driven off our biggest lead at the time, however, that's not what happened. Turns out That's Just Low had a blog with the same name, and made posts on it complaining about his homework assignments and his teachers. This employee was actually a high school student who sent us a collection of lesser-known artwork in attempts to make it seem like they were confidential. Breaking into MVD warehouse. Prior to our phone call with MVD, the distribution company for Regal's movies, there was a claim made on 4chan that some users had broken into MVD's old offices to see if there was anything from A Day with SpongeBob that could be found. This was before we knew a lot about Regal Films or their companies, so the act was considered dangerous. I believe a couple pictures were posted as proof, showing dark office rooms with some papers scattered about. Jason's meltdown phone call. Near the end of the search, once we had begun making contact with the bigger Regal employees, Jason Boards, who produced many of their movies, was someone we wanted to get in touch with. It wasn't too much of a stretch to think he might know something, so we called him and simply asked if he had any information on A Day with SpongeBob. And for some reason, this angered him to the point of raging during the phone call. I wasn't listening in on it, but apparently it was pretty bad, with him ranting about having contacted him over such a stupid matter and to never call him ever again. We never did contact Jason again, though this eventually led to the phone call with Lorenzo Hawley where it was brought up. Lorenzo stated Jason was a good guy, and we must have just caught him on a bad day. Foy Foods and Yay Organics. These two companies were other business endeavors run by Lorenzo Hawley, which essentially acted as healthy food alternatives. Yay Organics specifically sells wheatgrass, which can be used in a variety of different foods. What makes these important to the A Day with SpongeBob search, other than the fact that they have a connection to Lorenzo, is how people actually set out to find contact info for these companies in attempts to reach Lorenzo and ask about the film. I recall some of us getting blocked on their social media pages after sending messages relating to Regal Films, and there was even a phone call with an employee who told us to never call there again. We even located an in-person farmer's market that Lorenzo visited to sell his products, if we had no other way of reaching him, which undoubtedly would have been a really bad way to contact him. Mr. Orange. Mr. Orange is the supposed creator of A Day with SpongeBob, who came forward at the very end of the search, once we had made contact with Lorenzo Hawley. We don't know anything else about Mr. Orange other than his connections to the film, which was explained in one of the last phone calls we made. He stated that he went to Regal with the original pitch, who agreed to help produce it and created the Amazon listing to drum up demand. However, Mr. Orange would need to fund the film himself in order to have it be produced, which was difficult for him at the time, resulting in the film's cancellation and the Amazon listing becoming a leftover remnant of that. That's if you believe Mr. Orange's story. There are still many unanswered questions about the whole thing, such as why Mr. Orange only came forward after we had made contact with Lorenzo, and why he stopped replying to our emails despite our continued interest in the film. The script he gave us also contained some changes from the original summary of the film, which was never explained. Some have concluded the whole thing was staged by Lorenzo Hawley just to get us off his back and end the search, as there are no other identifiers for who Mr. Orange is. It's still a fun story to speculate on, though leaves his identity a mystery.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to check out some of my other game-related Lost Media videos. Thanks for watching, and until next time, Finn.